All right. Well, that was awkward. Thank you guys and girls for joining me. Most definitely thank you for letting me know that my first stream attempt was apparently set to private. I was really confused as to why nobody's there. I know I'm not the most popular thing on the YouTube, but it was somewhat depressing to have been sitting there for 20 minutes and nobody show up. Anyway, let me see if I can get this camera moved just a little bit. That seems to satisfy the light meter a little bit better. So how's everyone doing today? I am still recovering a bit from a dental episode that happened earlier today. See, what had happened was I have not been to the dentist in, gosh, 20 something years. And I went last week for a checkup just because I could. My new job has fully funded or fully paid for, whatever the word is, medical and dental insurance. So I figure I may as well take them up on it and had a good checkup. I mean, it's not that hard to take care of your teeth. It's very simple. You just brush your teeth and try not to do meth, and the rest tends to take care of itself. However, they did find a couple of problems. I had some fillings that were over 30 years old, and at the time they made fillings out of a silver material that is a combination of literal silver, zinc, tin, and mercury. Anyway, some of those fillings were cracking and had chipped off a bit, so they wanted to take those out and replace them with whatever the new stuff is that's white, so I no longer have the silver fillings. Thank goodness. But that's not what you guys came here to talk about or see or hear. Now, I have not fully regained all of the feeling in my face, so if you happen to see my right side starting to slant, I'm not having a stroke, I just can't feel my face. So, with that said, one thing that I would like to do today, I'd like to get to work on getting a video finished to release on the channel because I got one recorded and just didn't finish editing it. So I'd like to start off in Resolve. I know that Resolve is not Reaper, but I will be editing a video about Reaper. Video does have some video, I can't talk. Reaper does have some video editing capabilities, but it doesn't have a lot of the features that I would like to have. Now, with that said, if you guys and girls have some questions or there's something in Reaper that you would like to see, I would be glad to open it up and see if we can figure it out together. So let's get started if I can find the right scene. I don't have an assistant with me today because my wife is on the other side of the country for a week. Let's try this one. All right. That should have us in, what is this program called? Oh my goodness. Let me make sure I've got all my stuff working here. I gotta make a quick edit in OBS here, and we'll see if we can get this fixed. It's interesting. Oh wait, let's try this. I don't know that I'll get that working. I'm trying to fix my chat overlay and it doesn't seem to be working. Okay, I'm not going to worry about fixing that right now. The chat overlay will not work for this because I failed to plan for it. So let us get started. I'll just restore my chat over there where I can read. And so what I've got here in Resolve, I've got my clip from my camera, which is a Panasonic Lumix GH6, and I've got my clip from OBS. Now when I'm recording my tutorials, oh, there's that Yaphet Kodo face. I've always got some weird freeze frames like that. But when I'm recording my tutorials, I'll record directly to my camera for myself and just pick up my speaking with the camera's onboard microphone. I do also speak into this same mic that I'm using for the live stream, and I record that into OBS on a separate track along with the audio from Reaper. And I've already created optimized media from my footage here on the camera. And a brief explanation of what optimized media means. The camera records to either MOV or MP4, which are great delivery codecs, but they're not so great for editing. So sometimes when you're editing, you may have a powerful computer, but find that it chokes on what seems to be a simple file, something that would play just fine in either VLC or in Windows Media Player if you still use such archaic software, or QuickTime or whatever Mac uses, may struggle in your editing software, and it's because the video file is heavily compressed to save space. Now, this camera can also record to Apple ProRes, but when I last tested, about 3.5 minutes was over 40 gigabytes of data. Now, like I said, it eats disk space, but my computer can go through that footage with no trouble whatsoever because it doesn't have to encode and re-encode back and forth. It's fully uncompressed, so it can just use the footage as is. Hello, Adam. Welcome aboard. For those just joining, I'm starting off at the moment working in Resolve to edit a video for the channel, but if there's anything that you'd like to see in Reaper, just ask. This is your show. I'll be glad to do my best to accommodate. So I'll get started by grabbing my OBS footage and dragging that down onto my timeline. And we can see here that I've got my video footage here on the top layer, and I've got two separate tracks in the audio section. Those two tracks, I'd like to rename those. My first track there, that's audio 1, that should be my speaking mic. I'll call that Lewitt because that's what it is. Now my camera's in the way a little bit, so you may see me looking around to try to see things. And this second audio layer is Reaper. I do have a new desk coming in tomorrow, so I should be able to get a lot closer to my screen, thank goodness. This desk that I'm on, I built it, and I made the deck way too deep to accommodate all the stuff that I have sitting on it. But now that I've got 4K monitors, I'm constantly wanting to get even closer so I can see better, and it's caused me some back problems by trying to move around and twist and turn and all that stuff. Now my camera, it records, when I'm recording to MOV, it by default will record 4 channels of audio, which I do not need. So I'll go into my clip attributes, and I may have already done this. Yeah, I've already dumbed it down to a single track, and I've taken an embedded left and right channel to a single stereo track. So I will drag that down. I don't know that I actually need that in stereo, but that's fine. And I'll need to take this up one more layer so I can make sure that my audio is not overriding the 2 tracks from my OBS layer. And if you take, let me move this back just a hair. And if we take a look at the beginning here, you can see a couple of spikes in the waveform here. And those same spikes should correspond here on my camera audio layer. That's because just like the old clappers in the old days that they would use, and I guess they still use them now in modern film, I use that to synchronize my footage. So I can select both of my videos, right click and choose auto align clips based on waveform. It'll take a minute for Resolve to analyze the clips. I really wish that it would just see those things right at the beginning and just move it, but it wants to analyze the whole thing, which is fine, and it should sync those up while I take a sip of coffee. While that's thinking, I'm going to switch my OBS to studio mode and see if I can fix my chat overlay, because I sure would like to have that working. Let's try that. All right, I think we are working now. Okay, chat overlay is working now. Yeah, this is DaVinci Resolve 18. This is the studio version. And I've also got, let me see if I can get this guy in focus. Whoops, I didn't even mean to hit that. But I've got the speed editor keyboard, which I very seldom use. That thing is very handy if you have a lot of footage that you want to go through, or even if you just have one long clip that you want to cut up and just quickly get your base level of footage there. It's kind of hard for me to word that, probably because my brain is a little bit not wanting to work right now. Hey, Toucan, welcome aboard. We are almost done analyzing this footage. Not quite sure why it is taking so long. Well, I guess because it's a long clip. I think that this video will probably end up being about 5 to 7 minutes long, but as you can tell there, I've got a little over 15 minutes worth of footage to whittle through. I really like this chat overlay. That's kind of cool. I wish I had discovered this years ago. It's almost done. We'll be able to get started here shortly. I really hope to get to a point where we can get into Fusion and do some compositing. That stuff's pretty cool. No, the align to audio should also exist in the free version. You just have to have 2 clips, and no dumb questions at all. I have asked all the dumb questions, believe me, but that is not a dumb one. That should be available in the free version of Resolve as well. You just have to you can only do 2 clips at a time, so you have to make sure to control click to select your 2 different clips. And when you right click, you should have auto align clips in the menu. Now, there is 2 options. You can do it based on timecode or based on waveform. And if you are like myself, you probably don't have cameras that have timecode. And if you do have timecode, you've got some higher end cameras and you can sync based on that as opposed to the waveform. But since I don't have that feature, I use the claps at the beginning of my clips. And now that I've got, hey Sam, we are working in Resolve at the moment, just showing how I make my tutorial videos. So now that I've got those aligned, I can choose to either delete this track, which is the camera audio that I'm not using, or I can leave it there and mute it. I tend to just delete it because I really don't need it. One thing I would like to do is just make sure that that actually lines up. So I will mute the camera audio and make sure that this lines up with the OBS. So let's take a look. You are here. You got that grass cut pretty fast. Learn how to use controllers with feedback in what I could have sworn I saw something. I cannot read today. I thought I saw something about paperweights. I don't know. I think it's the Novocaine still kicking in. But let's check and make sure that this is actually synced up. And it is. So I can go ahead and delete this layer. I don't need it. And you'll notice that I've got a layer between my OBS layer, which I'll disable my video layer for a second, and my Reaper layer. And I do that on purpose because of how I would, like if I wanted to showcase something in Reaper, actually that'll be something kind of fun to show. I can show you something in Fusion. So if I can see it, I got to peek over my camera for a second. I'm grabbing an adjustment clip. There we go. So I grabbed an adjustment clip and just placed it in here above my OBS layer. Now, the reason that I do this on an adjustment clip is so I don't necessarily have to make a bunch of cuts, which I will end up making some cuts in a moment anyway, but let's say I wanted to zoom in on something in what do you call this? Oh my gosh, I can't think. In Reaper. So with my adjustment clip there, I'll just go straight into Fusion. And I'm only working on the adjustment clip and not directly on the OBS layer, which means I can easily move this animation if I wanted to. Let me increase my quality on this real quick. And so, like, let's say I wanted to focus on something here in, that looks really bad. Let me give that a minute to finish caching. Let's talk about Reaper. All right, let's try that again. I don't know why my Fusion looks so bad there. Let's see, Fusion memory cache. My playback, use optimized. Probably because it's using the optimized media. Let me uncheck that for a second and see if that behaves any better. Of course, if I disable my optimized media, this will probably act a little bit silly. I usually dumb down my resolution when editing just to help make things a little bit faster. So with the understanding that this is just going to look bad, we can move on. So if I wanted to zoom in on a section of the screen here, like if I wanted to zoom in on the transport, down here in, this is called the flow, I've got my media in and my media out. My media in is, of course, this same little clip. I'll be on vacation. Okay, just making sure that we are jailed to that short section, which we are. I've never tried Vegas. Hey, Juan. And so, like, if I wanted to zoom in on my transport here, for example, I would take a mask. So I'll go ahead and grab a mask. Let me see if I can remember how do I do this. And I want to put my mask around the transport. I'll go ahead and move that there. And I need... Gosh, I can't remember how I did this anymore. Let's just figure it out. I need a transform. That's what I need. I need a transform node. So I'm going to add a transform node out in empty space. And I will route my media in through this transform node. And I'm going to move my transform node over to my left viewer, which it doesn't look like anything at the moment. And then I'll take this rectangle mask. And I need to check this multiply by mask option. There we go. So now I have got that section isolated. I'll select my rectangle mask and make sure that I show only the area that I want to see. And I'll add another transform node after this, which this will make sense in a minute. Now I can resize that. Add a drop shadow after. And I'll explain some of this stuff here in just a second. I just had to try to run through it again real quick and see if I could remember what I was doing. I'm gonna merge that back on top, and now I've got another copy of what I wanted right there. Let's go back to my original transform. Okay, so that's moving inside the mask. I don't know why I put that transform there, but I'll move my pivot point to the rough center of that piece. Got my drop shadow. And now I can do another transform node after that. I'm thinking that I'm using too many transforms. I don't feel like I'm thinking correctly at the moment. All right, so what I'm doing here is if I disconnect this merge for a second, you can see my media out is just showing Reaper. I've run a copy of my, I guess I could have just done another instance of my media in instead of this transform node there. That's probably what I should have done instead. Actually, let's just start over and now I can explain it. So I've got my primary media in, which is the clip that we're working with. I'm going to make a copy of this with just Control-C and Control-V. There's so many different ways that I can do this. And I will run a mask on this, I think. Resize my mask to show only the section that I want, which in this case I'm just doing the transport for no reason. Can run a drop shadow after that. Actually, I think I like my other way better. This is so awkward. Let's see. So I will do a transform node for no reason whatsoever. Or I guess I probably could have done a background node. That would have done the same thing. Background node with a transparent background. I'll merge up my media. There we go. So I've got a transparent background just so I can merge this on top of it. Make sure that actually is the foreground, and it is. And now I can bring in my mask. And I want to make sure to set the option multiply by mask. So I can take my rectangle, isolate that to this transport section, run a drop shadow after that, and we can see the drop shadow there. I've got the parameters here where I can make it stronger, change my angle or distance, the blur strength as well, which I'd like a little bit of blur, but not too much. I'll add another transform node after that, and then I'll merge this back in. There we go. And I've got this transform node here, so I can size it up or down independent of everything else. So to try to better explain what's happening here, it has been a while, man. Where have you been? You dropped off the server there for a bit. It's good to see you. So, okay, I missed a couple of questions here. Let me back up here. I don't guess I have much of an opinion on Windows 11. I mean, I've had it since it came out, and it works. I don't think a whole heck of a lot about the interface and what goes on underneath, because it just works. It took me a little bit to get used to the centered taskbar, but I do so much with keyboard shortcuts that the clicky aspects don't really bother me too much. As for the ProRes, the footage definitely helps with editing, because with it being completely uncompressed, the computer just blows through it, and I don't have to generate this optimized media. But in most cases, I still just stick with MOV because of the file size. As far as the mask, well, let me go through what I'm. Oh, and as for the English content, yes, let's talk. We can do that later this evening if you are available. So I've got my media in, which is just this clip of Reaper. And here I've got a transparent background node, and I'm using that just to merge another copy of media on top of it. Now, in Resolve, in Fusion here, you work in nodes instead of in layers, and that's why I've got this other branching path here. So I can take my merge node, and I've used this rectangle mask to cut out a portion of this that I want to see. So if I wanted to focus just on this transport, I can get this moved exactly where I want it, and pipe this into the merge node to mask that section. I've got, and you can think of this literally as a flow chart. So after I mask that instance of the media in, I add a drop shadow afterwards, which you can see it here. I'm looking at my media out in my second window here. And then I run a transform node after the drop shadow, because if I want to move all of this, since this comes after the mask and the drop shadow, I can move this anywhere on the screen, and that's a standalone composition that can be moved wherever. So where this gets to be a little bit interesting, let me get this restored back to its initial position. And I'd like to move the pivot point on this to where it's roughly in the center of that. So let me disable the rectangle mask there for a second so I can see. I want to make the pivot point the center of that window. So I've got it centered on the play button. The reason for that is that pivot point is where all of your animations will originate. So if I wanted to animate that growing, for example, let's say at frame 36, I want that to be roughly 1.5 times its normal size. So I can take this up in this final transform node to 1.5 times, and I know it looks hideous. That's we won't worry too much about that. And I'll add a keyframe there. Now I can go back, let's say 6 frames, and I'll just do that with my arrow keys, or I can go over here where it shows 36, that's the current frame that I'm on, and I can put -6, and that's taking me to frame 30. Now at frame 30, I'll drag this back to 1, which I can click there, and it's automatically added a keyframe, so essentially I've made an automatic animation there, and that grew to 1.5 times its size. And then when I get to the end, let's say at frame 104, I want to add another keyframe, so I'll just click this diamond here to keep it at 1.5, but I've got to have a starting point for my keyframe animation. I don't want it to animate all the way between those. And let's do another 6 frames. So here with my 104, I can do +6. That takes me to 110, and I can take this back down to 1. So that's got my animations, but the animation will be a little bit jerky, so I'd like to smooth that out. Let me hide my face cam here for a second. So to do that, I'll go to my spline editor, and I only want to work with my transform and size. I can click this little button here to zoom to fit, and I'll grab all 4 of these frames, or these keyframes rather, and press the letter S as in Sierra or Sam or smooth. And I actually don't like what that did. That did a little bit too much up there. Granted, I can change these legs or arms or whatever they're called, handles, so, to smooth that out better, but I want to undo that, and I think it would work better if I did 2 at a time, if I recall. So I'll grab these 2, and let's try S again, and that got those just fine. I think what it did is it tried to smooth out this transition between these 2. And I still haven't got that thing fixed here, so sorry about the text not working. What is he saying? It's a lot of steps. It's not really a lot of steps once you get used to it, and I'm kind of halfway fumbling through this because I forgot how to do some of this stuff. I want to smooth those out again, and like you said, you can repeat this. I'm doing the way that I'm doing this is it's on this adjustment clip, so I can take this same thing and move it anywhere else in the video. So at this point, if I were to play this back, let's talk about Reaper. It did the animation, and it should, I'll be on vacation, right back out smoothly as it did. There's a couple of things there that are kind of wacky though, because you can see it starts off in a bit of an odd spot. So let's go back into Fusion again, and I think I would like to keyframe. Let me get back over here. There we go. I'd like to keyframe the blend on that. So I can go to my keyframe editor, and I can see where I've got some keyframes there on the transform. I haven't learned the key press combinations for this yet, so we'll just drag this thing back over there. And that is the same, that's the first keyframe where my transform starts. I think what I would like to do is take this merge node and keyframe the opacity on it. If I take this blend all the way down, you can see my screen is right back to normal. So I will start with a 0 blend, and I'll go 6 frames forward just like I did on the other animation, and take that up to, we got everybody in the house now. Take that up to 1. I'll move down to my next keyframe, which is at 104. We'll add a keyframe on my blend and go 6 frames forward again, and take that back down to 0. And of course I'll want to go back into the spline editor and do the same thing again to make those smooth. Otherwise it's a strict linear animation, which I don't care for. So I've got those smoothed out, and back here on the edit tab you can see this red line here. If it's red, that means it's render caching in the background, and once that's blue, this should play smoothly. Now this animation that I just made is not even something that I need, but just for the sake of showing it. I'll be on vacation this week, and there, that worked exactly as it should. But I don't even need that animation, so I'm going to get rid of it, and let's get back to proper editing. So I've got my clips in here, and we've already aligned with the claps there at the front, and I want to link all these together so I can edit them together, so to speak. Let me make sure I get the right key press on it, because I will butcher that. I tend to get my key presses from Reaper and Resolve mixed up a lot, so I did Control-Alt-L to link those together, so now when I select one, it selects all of them. And I wanted that so I can find my starting point, which looks to be right about there, and I will ripple delete that first part. I usually like to get my audio fairly close to where it should be at this stage too, so let's take a look at my meters and see what I got going on here. I'll be on vacation this week, so I'll skip. It's a little bit low, so I will bump that up, let's say maybe 6 dB. Maybe overkill. Be on vacation this week, so I'll skip the long introduction. That's fine. And if I wanted to do something further in this, like add some effects like compression, which of course I will do, I can do that in the Fairlight tab. One thing that I really like about Resolve as opposed to Premiere is these tabs across the bottom, or pages as they're called, are actually, you can consider them full-blown apps, or applications that are built into the suite. So the media page is for organizing your media. If I had multiple cameras, I might want to go in and edit the metadata on these to tag them with the camera name, the angles, different things like that to help better work with my media. The cut page is for doing quick edits, which I very seldom, if ever, do. The edit page is where I do my primary editing. Fusion is for compositing and video effects. Of course, color is for color grading, and you can do a lot of cool stuff in here with the magic mask and like tracking of objects. Fairlight is for audio, and this is essentially a full-fledged DAW. I've got access to all of my plugins in here. So on my Lewitt mic, well, and one thing that I like to do because I don't have my room properly treated still, I hope to finish that up this weekend, is I'll go and add SPL Deverb Plus, which this is a plugin alliance plugin, so it takes it about 4 to 5 seconds to load, just like it tends to do in Reaper. And I'll bring in a little bit of reduction of that echo. Let's get this blown up a bit so where I can see some audio. I'll be on vacation this week, so I'll skip the long introduction and dang it. I'll be on vacation this week, so let's skip the long introduction and get straight. There we go. And I can see that that YouTube is complaining a little bit about not getting enough video to maintain smooth streaming. I'm assuming that's because I'm utilizing my video card to encode in OBS, plus I'm using it in Resolve, but we'll see how this goes. I do a little bit of reduction there. And I'll typically, you've got a dynamics module in here where you can use the built-in compressor. And there's also one thing that I like in Resolve. It is this dialogue processor, which is a single plugin, for lack of a better word, that has derumble, depop, ds, compressor, expander, and exciter built in. Results may vary with this. I'll usually just do a little something. I tend to use a third-party de-esser more so than this one, just because it's, what is this about the toaster? I feel like I'm missing something. You guys are going to have to tell me about this toaster that you're talking about. Unless the toaster is indeed the teleprompter that you're speaking of. Let's play with this just a little bit and see if I can get this going at a reasonable level. What I usually do when I'm trying to get my audio correct is I will add an in and an out point here. I can press I for an in point, O for an out point, and somewhere in the middle, if I press Alt and slash, I always get / and / backwards. Let's see if I can get this right. I'll be on vacation. I forgot to link loop, so if I hit that, I can keep looping this section and try to get my compression just right this week. So let's skip the long introduction and get straight to the point. In our last video, we took a look at how you could dang it. And I hit the wrong button. Maybe it's left Alt. I'll be on vacation this week, so let's skip the long introduction and get straight to the point. In our last video, we took a look at how you could dang it. I'll be on vacation this week, so let's skip the long introduction and get straight to the point. In our last video, we took a look at how you could dang it. I'll be on vacation this week, so let's skip the long introduction and get straight to the point. In our last video, we took a look at how you could dang it. I'll be on vacation this week, so let's skip the long introduction and get straight to the point. And that seems to be doing well enough. It seems to be, compressing well enough to even it out. And of course, I can add back some more makeup gain in a different module. In the dynamics module here, I've got a secondary compressor that I typically use and run that a bit faster, with like a faster attack and release. And of course, as I said, I can add makeup gain in a limiter. I think that's got it going well enough for the time being. And let's see if we can get this video reasonably edited. Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. I'll be on vacation. That's good enough there, so I'll make a split and ripple delete from here. Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. I'll be on vacation this week, so I'll skip the long introduction and dang it. I love those dang it's. You guys get to see all the outtakes ahead of time. I'll be on vacation this week, so let's skip the long introduction and get straight to the point. In our last video, we took a look at how you could dang it. Dang it. In our last video, we looked at how you can embed the UI of Reaper stock plugins in the track control panel and the mix control panel. It seems to be a good take there. And I don't know what button I just hit, so let me hit. Okay, that's fine. Make sure I cut that right. I'll be on vacation this week, so let's skip the long introduction and get straight to the point. In our last video, we looked at how you can embed the UI of Reaper stock plugins in the track control panel and the mix control panel. That's a good spot there. That feature doesn't exist. Dang it. While that option is not available for third-party plugins, dang it. While that option's not available for third-party plugins, there's still some useful. Dang it. and you can go through this at double speed if you'd like, but I kind of like going through it and finding all the dang it's and just dumb stuff that I could use for outtakes in Marvel Cinematic Universe post-credit scenes, things like that. I'm just now realizing I still have that toaster comment on the screen there. That's better. While that option, dang it. While the option for a fully embedded UI doesn't. And I have no script, so I'm usually just literally winging it, and anything that actually makes it out is pure luck. While the option to fully embed the UI of a third-party plugin is not available, dang it. While Reaper doesn't offer the option to fully embed the UI of third-party plugins in the third-party plugins in that Yaphet Kodo look again. While Reaper doesn't offer the option to fully embed, there are still a few. Okay, apparently I got it right somewhere in here. Let's try here. While Reaper doesn't offer the option to fully embed the UI of third-party plugins, there are still a few things. Looks like I split it up on purpose there just to make sure I didn't butcher a sentence. So let's try that. Panel. While Reaper doesn't offer the option to fully embed the UI of third-party plugins, there are still a few things you can do to make control. There are still a few. It looks like that's probably a good one there. I could usually guess at these by just checking the length. There are still a few options to allow you to have easier access to the controls for your favorite plugins. Let's take a look. All right, what did I do there? That's weird. I looked the wrong direction. Let's try here. Offer the option to fully embed the UI of third-party plugins. There are still a few options to allow you to have easier access to the controls for your favorite plugins. Let's take a look. I have no clue why I looked down. But I've got a little bit of an awkward cut right here. There are I'll just grab that and add a transition. I'm not sure if I hit the right key press. I think I accidentally did the audio. There we go. Make that shorter. And that's a cross dissolve. I think I'd like for that to be a smooth cut. And let's see how that works once that finishes caching there. Plugins. There are still a few third-party plugins. There are still a yeah, with that smooth cut transition there was no, I couldn't see anything in that transition. There are still a few. Now it is a bit of a long gap there, so I'll switch to, what is it called? Trim edit mode, where I can just grab this left edge. I guess it's kind of like ripple editing in Reaper. That's pulling all of this at the same time, and of course it's having to redo that transition there. Plugins. There are still a few plugins. There are still a few options to allow you to have easier access to the controls for your favorite plugins. Let's take a look. And now that I've got the let's take a look there, I'll trim some more of that, and that's where I would typically switch to my picture-in-picture. And the way that I do that is using the DVE plugin, or effect, or whatever it's called. It may take me a second to find it because I can't see over my camera. I cannot wait for the new desk to come in. There we go. So I can add my DVE in here, and it'll take a second for that to show up because it's generally a little bit taxing. Well, that did work. Good deal. Did I do that in the wrong spot? I think I did. Party plugins. There are still a few. Yeah, I did that in the wrong place. I wasn't paying attention. So I will take that off and add it back to the correct clip, which is this long one. Now with DVE, I can go into, and I don't know what DVE stands for, but it essentially allows you to perform 3D types of effects on a 2D source. So like I can rotate that clip across all axes. But the main reason that I use it is because it has this border and drop shadow feature just built in, and it's really easy to work with. So I can give it a stronger shadow. Let's change my angle, drop distance a little bit closer, and I use less blur initially, just so I can get a better idea of what this is going to look like. I haven't picked a color for this video yet, so let's pick a color. Let's go with yellow for no reason whatsoever. Up in my position, I will change my Z position to make that smaller. That usually will choke the system because that's 4K footage on top of 4K footage with lots of transcoding going on. If I would like, I can round off those corners a bit. Although I can't seem to find the option for it. I know it's in here somewhere. It's not under pivot. I feel like I can't read today. I think it's still that medicine from the dentist office. At any rate, I'll go ahead and get this moved. Let's soften up that shadow. And maybe move it closer. Get that moved into place. And there's not really any need for me to be that big, so I'll probably crop in my sides a bit and maybe make this even smaller. Another thing that I like to do once I go to my full screen like this is to crop the bottom of windows, so that way if it was recorded a month ago, which never happens for me, the date is not showing down there. And if I recall, I think I like to crop that 60 from the bottom. Yeah, and that got rid of the Windows toolbar or taskbar down there. Let's finish getting this guy into place. And I add my logo overlay a bit later. I like to full screen that and see how big that actually is. Man, the optimized version of, I think that looks bad because, yeah, the optimized footage for OBS is significantly lower quality, but doing it like that allows me to edit without this stuff stuttering at all. Of course, the final product will look a whole lot better. But now that I've got that done, we got to figure out where I'm starting. The project I've got open is the same one from last time. Dang it. Still the project I've got open is the same one from last time. It's the work in progress for a theme song for the channel. Okay, that seemed like a good take, so we'll trim there. Now I've got a long amount of silence. As I said previously, this was a quick composition, so the playing is quite sloppy, but it works for now. Another ripple delete. Now, for the bass tone, I'm using Duality EX from Audio... Dang it. Okay, so I know I need to cut right there, and now I need to find where my next proper take is. For the bass tone, I'm using Duality... For the bass tone, I'm using Duality EX from Audio Assault, and it sounds a little something like this. So it looks like it took me a while to do a good take there. We got that. For the bass tone, I'm using Duality EX from Audio Assault, and it sounds a little something like this. And while that sounds pretty... I don't know why I waited that long, but we'll let that meter die down, and then cut there. And ripple delete this back up. Audio Assault, and it sounds a little something like this. And while that sounds pretty good to my ear, and while that sounds while that tone does sound pretty, that tone does sound... How many times did I have to say that? To help correct that, let's try here. That tone does sound pretty good to my ear, but some of the notes poke out a lot more than it should. To help correct that, I use... Hey Wayne, yeah, this is Resolve 18. And if anybody wants to see anything Reaper related, just speak up. I know I'm just kind of off in my own little world editing right now, but if there's something that you want to see, I will be glad to give it a try. More than it should. To help correct that, I used an 1176 style compressor from... To help correct that and level out the playing a bit, I used an 1176 style compressor from IK Multimedia. John has had jokes all day today. John, are you drinking that tall thing of beer again today? Is that what's happening? An 1176 style compressor from IK Multimedia. And we got some action. Let's see if we can fix this. Report that guy. Good times. Nothing like having to moderate your own. Okay. I think we've got that taken care of. I'm glad we were able to squash that pretty quick. Compressor from IK Multimedia. Now, why did I take so long? What did I do here during all this time? Let me back up a step. That tone sounds pretty good to my... Wow, so I just redid that whole thing for some reason. I'm going to trust my instinct and probably just wipe all of this stuff. Because I apparently did this for a reason. Let's go back to here. Something like this. Ripple delete that. And go to here. Hopefully this will work. It's from Audio Assault, and it sounds a little something like this. That tone sounds pretty good to my ear, but because... Oh, yeah, I have to repeat stuff a billion times. I mean, this is like 15 minutes worth of footage. It's probably going to be like a 5-minute video. That tone sounds pretty good to my ear, but my playing... That tone sounds pretty... Let's try this long one here. That tone sounds pretty good to my ear, but you could probably... No, I don't do a script. I usually just have a rough idea and wing it. I think I may have done a script like once. That tone sounds pretty good to my ear, but you could probably tell that my playing was not that even. That sounded like a pretty good take there. What have I got next? To correct that, I used an 1176 style. To correct that, I used an early bypass. The plugin... Okay, there we go, so... I would welcome that very much so. Let me... There you go. You are now moderator. Hopefully we won't have a lot of stuff happen on here. I think that's only the second time I've seen that happen, and I'm usually able to catch it pretty quick, but it does get annoying. That tone sounds pretty good to my ear, but you could probably tell that my playing was not that even. To correct that, I used a little bit of a long, awkward pause there, so I'm going to trim edit that out and try to shore that up a bit. Sounds pretty good to my ear, but you could probably tell that my playing was not that even. To correct that, I used an 1176 style compressor from IK Multimedia to help level out the... And that was a bad take, so let's try this one. To correct that, I used an 1176 style compressor plugin from IK Multimedia to help smooth out the playing a bit. Let's take a look at... That sounded like a good one there, so I will ripple delete there and just make sure that I've got a good transition here. Was not that even. To correct that, I used an 1176 style compressor plugin from IK Multimedia to help smooth out the playing a bit. Let's take a look at Black 76. Thank you, set up by Marshall. Hopefully you won't have anything to do for the rest of the stream. The plugin's currently bypassed. The plugin's currently bypassed. I'll play through that same section again and engage the plugin and see if you can hear the difference. Alright, so we need to... The plugin's currently... Trim that section out and figure out if I actually need this long stretch here. 76. Till
The
next
plugin's
time,
currently
Jason.
bypassed. I'll play through that same
Thanks for
section
stopping
again and
by, man.
engage the plugin and see if you can hear the difference.
Another long pause there for some reason, probably so I could figure out what I wanted
That
to say
sounds
next.
pretty good. That sounds a lot better. Needless to say, that sounds a lot better.
There's a good take there.
That sounds a lot better to me, but I could still stand to finesse the controls a little bit.
Looks like I may have actually spoken correctly here.
Needless to say, that can be done right here in the user interface, but what if there were a way to embed these controls into the track control panel to give me easier access without having to have this large overlay?
Now, if you notice this red and blue line up top, again, it's trying to render cache some things in the background for smoother playback. What I'm doing to make myself smaller is an effect of sorts, and every time that I cut, it's trying to render downstream again, so it's constantly trying to keep up with what I'm doing. I could make that a little bit smoother by disabling that layer of the video, but I like to see myself on there a little bit just to make sure I'm not doing something stupid like picking my nose.
There's a few different ways that we can accomplish this.
There's a few different ways that we can accomplish picking your nose.
There's a few different ways that we can accomplish this. With the plugin, there's a few different ways that we can.
Okay, so apparently I said that again. Let's see if we can figure out where I was happy with
I can click the.
Looks like right there.
There's a few different ways that we can accomplish this. I can click the param button in the. I can click the param. See our first option. I can click the param button in the upper right corner, and that opens up a submenu.
Now, I am wondering if I can use your toes. I wonder if I can get rid of the optimized media just for this one clip, because I would like to see that in better quality. I know it's going to slow down things a bit. I know that up here under playback, I can do use optimized media if available. I can uncheck that. If I go to render cache, let's see, on one of these options, I can delete my optimized media, but that'll make the computer choke a bit on the video footage. I guess that's a question I'll have to... You can pick your friend's nose, but he may not be your friend anymore after that. You know, I found something now that I'd like to try to find out. So I'm going to open up Discord here and go to DaVinci Resolve server. We'll just go ahead and move that on screen just for the sake of argument. And let's see who's on here today. And what I'm hoping to do is to be able to remove optimized media, but just for a single clip, because with the optimized media for for OBS, it's just too blurry for me to see it and work with it there. I know that when I actually render this out, it'll be full quality, but if I can nuke that optimized media for that one clip, I think I would like that better. Render cache, don't need that. I'll give this 30 seconds of digging. And I can uncheck this use optimized media if available, and I think that'll clear it up, but again, yep, that did it immediately. That looks a whole lot better, but the system may struggle a little bit. Let's find out.
I can click the param button in the upper right corner, and that opens up a submenu.
Now, the reason that I wanted to get that more clear is so I can do what I had started working on before. I'll need to move forward for a second so I can see. All right, now I've got an adjustment clip that I'm going to sit right here.
accomplish this. I can click the param button in the upper right corner. Button in the upper right corner.
And I'll need to figure out how long I need this to be. So let's get this editing done, and then I can... What I'm wanting to do is to zoom in on that, although that's pretty easy to see as it is. I may end up not zooming in on that, so let's just get
And
the
that
edit
opens
done.
up a submenu. We can see our first option shows me the last touched control, which is the bypass button.
Bypass button. And I'm not sure if you're catching this, but now that I've turned off the optimized media, you can see that I'm a bit laggy when I'm trying to speak. It's like the audio is going, but my mouth is moving later. Again, that's why I generally use the optimized media, is just so everything will run a lot smoother while I'm editing it, particularly if I've got a lot of layers.
Whatever control you most recently interacted with will be available here, and I can choose...
Oh, encoder overloaded. Good times. I probably need to switch back to my optimized media just so I can stream while doing this, I guess. And we should see that, a reduction in quality on that, but that's fine.
Whatever control you most recently interacted with will be available here, and I can choose the option Show in Track Controls. Clicking this now shows controls. Choose the option Show in Track Controls. Clicking this now shows my bypass option here in the track control panel.
Figure out where to cut that.
Now the bypass button is a toggle. The bypass button is a toggle, so having this knob is a little bit difficult to work with.
I'm going to take my camera off of the screen and see if that helps free up some resources on the system here. As OBS is complaining again. I think I'm trying to run too much through the... And I've got a nice video card. I've got the RTX 3080, 12 gigabyte, I think. Let's try this. That's the wrong button. Let's try this one. Yeah, let's see if maybe that is a little bit more forgiving since it's not having to process my camera at the same time.
Option here in the track control.
And there they are again. All right.
My bypass option here in the track control panel. Now the bypass button is a toggle. The bypass button is a toggle, so having this knob is a little bit difficult to work with. The bypass work with. I can grab this control and roll it up.
I think I had some problems with that. Is there not an option to completely ban somebody? I mean, I know that you can do the timeout, which is only good for, what, 5 minutes? But how do you completely ban someone from accessing the channel? I've got that person hidden, but I'm going to report them again and see if they can just be terminated somehow.
I can click the param button in the top right of the interface, and that shows a submenu.
Okay, it looks like I started over on that because the bypass thing was giving me trouble. So now I got to find where I did this before.
We can see our first option shows me the... I can click the param...
Way back there. So I got a lot to delete here.
I can click the...
Right about there, that looks good. And thank you for catching that, by the way.
There's a few different ways that we can accomplish this. I can click the param button in the top right of the interface, and that shows a submenu. We can see the first line in that submenu shows last touched bypass, and that means that the last parameter that I adjusted inside of the plugin is the bypass function.
Make a cut there and find where I have some more contiguous audio.
At this point, the next few options in the menu are tied to the last touch parameter. I can choose Show in Track Controls, and that will allow the bypass control to show up in the track control panel. Control panel.
And did I actually do that?
But
Let's see.
an option that you may find.
Okay. Cut right there and see if we can find the next section.
But an option that you may find more useful, particularly if you'd like more controls, is the effects parameter list.
That's better.
But an option that when I hover over effects parameter list, that gives me another submenu, and I have this option Show in Track Controls. Mousing over Show in Track Controls exposes all of the controls that are available in the plugin. If I'd like to have quick access to input gain, I can place a check there.
Looks like I started speaking semi-intelligently there for a moment.
If I'd like to have quick access to input gain, I can place a check there. And we can see that the input gain now shows in my track control panel. I can left click and drag. I
think it was a bot, Perper. If that actually was a human, definitely feel sorry for them.
I can left click and drag to adjust this parameter, or I can just mouse over and use the. I can left click and drag to adjust this parameter, or I can simply mouse over and use the mouse wheel to control the parameter.
That seems better. Let's try that.
Gain now shows in my track control.
Oh, let me see if anybody's answered me. Still no answer on the Resolve server, but that's
Control
fine.
panel. I can left click and drag to adjust this parameter, or I can simply mouse over and use the mouse wheel to control the parameter. I'll use my mouse wheel to
Okay, so I didn't actually demonstrate that, so I'll just trim out this dead air.
To adjust this parameter, or I can simply mouse over and use the mouse wheel to control the parameter.
A little bit more dead space to trim here. Speaking of Dead Space, I am looking forward to the reboot of Dead Space.
The parameter. I'll use my mouse wheel to adjust this, and we should see the. I'll use my mouse wheel to adjust this, and we should see the parameter changing in the plugin UI.
And did I say the same thing?
If I'd like to add.
Nope. Okay, so that was legit.
I'll use my mouse wheel to adjust this, and we should see the parameter changing in the plugin UI. If I'd like to add another.
Okay, I did have a bit of dead space there. Moved it back and forth and stopped, so I'll cut there and figure out where I'm speaking next.
If I'd like to add another parameter, I can go back to my param. If I'd like to add another control, I can go back to param, effects parameter list, show in track controls, and check mark another option.
That seems like a good long run there. I guess I can get rid of this other viewer over here since I don't need it.
If I'd like to add another control, I can go back to param, effects parameter list, show in track controls, and check mark another option. Let's add ratio. Now I've got input gain and ratio right here in my track control panel. That can be a little.
I'm curious, if you watched that in double speed playback, did you enjoy all the dang it's in the beginning?
That can be a little bit tedious to add individual. That can be a little bit tedious to add individual controls, but it's nice to have that option to. It can be a little bit tedious if you'd like to add several controls, but it's nice to have the option to pick and choose what you'd like to have in the track control panel.
That seemed good there. Now I've got another long stretch to trim out here.
Let's close the plugin interface and take a look at another method. I can right-click TR5 Black 76 in the effects list.
Let's see here.
And in the submenu, I have the same option.
So I'll end up animating myself out of this here. Hey, Marty. Been a while, bro. Hope all is well with you and your people.
Click TR5 Black 76 in the effects list.
And let's see, how do I want to handle this? I think I will do an adjustment clip again. Let me see if I can see it. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to work the way that I'm hoping it will, so we will find out shortly. And it's not. That's okay.
Black 76
So how will I handle this?
in the effects list.
I think what I'll do is to actually just keyframe that video itself. My face is doing much better, thank you. I have finally regained feeling. Let's see here. I think that I'll keyframe the opacity here. So I'll go up here, go back 6 frames. Whoops, and that didn't work how I wanted it to. I feel like I've forgotten how to do this, so I'm just going to back up the old-fashioned way and do that. Add another keyframe here. So now if I go 6 frames forward, I can drop my opacity down there. Let's say 10% is fine, so that should animate now.
I can right-click TR5 Black 76 in the effects list, and in the sub.
And of course, this next one is fully opaque because it's another clip technically. So I'll go ahead and start with that at 10% and keyframe it back up when needed.
And in the submenu, I have the same option, Show Effects Parameters in Panel. If I'd like, I can simply choose the option All Parameters, and I now have.
Okay, so there's a good spot there. I'll trim this out.
If I'd like, I can simply choose the option All Parameters.
Okay, so at that point,
option All.
Let's go right about there. I'll add another keyframe here on opacity. What the heck have I done? Oh, I can't read. That says 10, not 100. I gotta find my spot again. Right about there. Add a keyframe there. Go back 6 frames. Add a keyframe there. Now go back forward. Chicken McFry, you have done this before. Well, I guess on the one hand, it is interesting that I'm apparently at that point where people want to spam my channel.
If I'd like, I can simply choose the option All Parameters, and I now have all the controls for that plugin right here in the track control panel.
Oh my gosh, how is this clown back on here? Wow. Good times.
For that plugin right here in the track control panel.
Oh, they're definitely making this an interesting show. Again? Yep, got another one. That is aggravating.
Right here in the track control panel. This makes it very easy for me to control all of these parameters without having to have this larger interface on screen.
I guess this is what I get for hitting 7,000 subs today.
I can change my ratio. Output gain. I can change my ratio, output gain.
Okay, there we go.
Larger interface on screen. I can change my ratio, output gain, input gain, attack and release.
Now at this point, I may want to do some animation to zoom in on that, but the interface is so big, it's probably pointless. Yeah, and that's what I've been doing is like as I see him over here on my, I've got the chat as a pop-up because of this plugin that I'm using, so I can do those things on screen like that, which is pretty cool. But I'm just trying to grab them as soon as I see them. What's this button do? Now I'm distracted. I'm curious, does these same things happen on Twitch and other streaming platforms? I would assume they do.
I can change my ratio, output gain, show.
And while I'm going back through this is I'm watching up here to see when I actually stop manipulating that parameter, so I can cut and move to the next section.
I can change my ratio, output gain, output gain.
Because it just feels wrong to make a video long just for the sake of monetization if it's literally just dead air. So I try to trim out as much of this stuff as possible while still keeping it a usable video.
Gain, input gain.
Very long stretch there.
Input gain, attack and release times. I can bypass the plugin, gain, attack and release times. I can bypass.
Now, I can't tell if that was still, Oh, good point. Yeah, since I've got this on the option that allows me to stream in full 4K, the latency is a bit awkward, I guess.
Attack and release times. I can bypass.
Okay, there wasn't that much of a difference there, or not that much dead space.
I can bypass the plugin. I can bypass the plugin.
Okay, that part there, if I recall, I did that twice because I noticed as I was manipulating the bypass in the track control panel, it wasn't actually bypassing the plugin. When you show all of your parameters, which this will be fuzzy, but there's two bypasses in there, and I'm not sure why there's two.
Release times.
But I just discovered that while making this video.
I can bypass the plugin. I can bypass the plugin.
There it is again.
I can bypass the. And there are a few other options in.
So it looks like I say it one more time.
I can bypass the plugin.
Okay, and I can see in that one it actually did bypass and re-enable up in the top, so we'll keep that one.
I can bypass the plugin. And there are a few other options in here that are specific to Reaper and not necessarily a part of the plugin itself. I can adjust the wet. I can adjust the wet-dry blend, and you'll see that.
Hey, thanks for the assistance. Hope that you have a lovely day at work.
I can adjust the wet-dry parameter, and you'll see that changing in the top right corner of the plugin interface.
Now, didn't I just say
here
that?
that are specific to Reaper.
Maybe I didn't.
I can adjust the.
There we go.
I can adjust the wet-dry parameter, and you'll see that changing in the top right corner of the plugin interface. I can adjust the wet-dry parameter.
I got that right eventually.
Also listen.
There we go. Let's just try that one.
I can adjust the wet-dry parameter, and you should see that changing in the top right corner of the plugin interface.
I'm going to disable the optimized media for a moment so I can actually see when that that change happens. We'll take that a minute, but that should clear up shortly. There we go.
And there are a few other options in here that are specific to Reaper and not necessarily a part of the plugin itself. I can adjust the wet-dry parameter, and you should see that changing in the top right corner of the plugin interface.
And I'm noticing that anytime I disable the optimized media, it tends to choke out OBS again, so I'll turn that back on, and so I saw what I needed to see.
And I can also listen, and I can also engage Delta Solo. And I can also engage Delta Solo. And I can also engage Delta Solo. Delta Solo allows you to hear the differences. I can also engage Delta Solo.
Third time's the charm. Or fourth, let's see.
So if I engage...
Okay, that looks right there.
And I can also engage Delta Solo. Delta Solo allows you to hear what changes a plugin is making to a sound. So if I engage this on a compressor, for example, I should only hear the gain reduction. Let's give it a try.
Trim that dead air.
So if I engage this on a compressor, for example, I should only hear the gain reduction. Let's give it a try. That feature is pretty handy as it allows me to dial in my... That feature is pretty handy because it allows me to set the controls of the compressor and hear exactly what it's doing.
Alright, gotta cut that section out.
That feature is pretty handy because it allows me to set the controls of the compressor and hear exactly what it's doing.
Whoops. Wrong screen.
And what's really nice about this option to embed controls is the fact that it works on any plugin, not just Reaper stock plugins.
Yeah, it looks like I am nearing the end of this video. Good deal. Just need to find where I cut to facing forward.
And what's really nice about this option to embed controls is the fact that it works on any plugin.
Right about there, assuming that's actually the last one. So let's make sure I didn't do that again. Okay, that looks good.
What it's doing. And what's really nice about this option to embed controls is the fact that it works.
And once I face forward there, I'll make another cut and we'll turn off the DVE effect, which takes us back to full screen. Give that a second to render cache.
And what's really nice about this option to embed controls is the fact that it works on any plugin, not just Reaper stock plugins. I hope this helps. If you like the content you've been seeing, be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Alright, so I'll trim that dead space, and the subscribe animation is one that I made. Over here on the left side in my media bin, you'll notice this option that says Power Bins, and Power Bins is what you can use to create, what is it called? Create reusable assets. So I can go in here to my Let's Talk About Reaper folder, and I've got a few different things that I use pretty regularly. Like I've got the Discord server graphic, the Reaper shield that I use from time to time, my own logo, the drum editing and Reaper stuff, which that course is on ProMix Academy if that's something that you're interested in. Old picture of me, and I've got my... Oh wow, did I delete? No, there it is. There's my subscribe animation, which will probably mess up some things because of the stream, but let's give that a second to render cache and see if I've got that in the right place. Nope, I can hear that further down here.
I hope this helps. If you like the content you've been seeing, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And
I need to trim that out.
like, share, and subscribe, and you can
Maybe move that back just a little bit further.
be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel further by clicking the Buy Me a Coffee.
Now, I always pause when I say that, and it's on purpose. I have to find where I had my coffee cup in here. Right about there.
I like coffee.
So I'll trim that out and move it backwards into that spot. That should get it.
Further by clicking the Buy Me a Coffee. I like coffee.
Let that render cache.
The channel further by clicking the Buy Me a Coffee. I like coffee.
Yeah, that is a pretty ancient picture.
Or super thanks links below. Or super thanks link below. Or super thanks link below.
So that 15 minutes worth of footage is roughly 5 minutes of footage.
Or super thanks. Or super thanks link below. Membership is now.
There we go. Of course, after this, I would need to do any of my effects that I would want to do, add in music and have it ducking the speech and all that stuff.
Coffee? I like coffee. Or super thanks link below. Membership is now available for the channel as well. If you have some ideas,
we're in the home stretch. I'll just trim that
as well. If you have some ideas for exclusive member content that you'd like to see, be sure to leave a comment. Visit us on Discord and engage with other Reaper users. We'll see you next time, Reaper users.
That seems to be about it.
We'll see you next time.
And let's see, did I do anything stupid this time? Yep, looks like I played some video games and got frustrated. Oh, that frame. Alright, so that is done. And now, just for the sake of argument, to show you how to do sidechaining in Resolve, if I wanted to... Let me change the name of this layer to BGM so I know it's background music, and I'll just grab something out of the... I've got a folder with some stuff from the YouTube audio library. Of course, it's all going to be stuff that I've already used, but it's kind of whatever. Let's go for ambient. I don't know why it does this every time. And I need something that's approximately 5 to 6 minutes long, so I'll sort by length. And let's go with this one. Now that is obviously way too loud, so I'm going to go ahead and drop that about maybe 16 dB and see how that sounds. I guess I need to see if the song is even decent. Yeah, that works. I do think I want to trim that. Actually, I don't think I like that. That's a little too ambient. Let's try again. Unsolo that.
In our last video, we looked at...
Okay, so that is pretty good. I think I need to give it more volume.
While Reaper doesn't offer the option...
And that right there is a little bit too loud. Let's see. What else do you do on... Let me make sure I'm reading this right. What else do you do to a vocal to get a slight spear phone effect like that? I don't know that song, but... Spear phone? Would you mind rewording the question? I'm not sure that I understand what you're asking. So to make that automatically duck, I'll go into Fairlight, and let me get rid of the inspector here for a second, and expand out my mixer, and I've got my Luit channel and my background music channel. I'll double click Dynamics on my Lewitt channel, which is my speaking mic, and I've already got the compressor engaged, but I want to click this Send button. Now I'll do the same thing on my background music channel, except make sure that I click Dynamics and not Pan. And now that I'm sure that I've got my background music channel selected, I'll turn on the compressor and I'll choose Listen. So this is now listening to the input from the speakerphone. Oh, speakerphone effect. Okay. Now, are you wanting to do that in Reaper or in Resolve? Just let me know which one you're looking and doing that in, and we can take a look. So now that this is being sidechained from my speaking voice, I'll need to be sure to do a longer hold time so there's not like a very obvious ducking, or not ducking, but not obvious pumping, and give it a longer release time, and then just adjust my ratio and threshold to fit.
Let's talk about Reaper. I'll be on vacation this week, so let's skip the long introduction and get straight to the point. In our last video, we looked at how you can embed the UI of Reaper stock plugins in the track control panel and the mix control panel. While Reaper doesn't offer the option to fully embed the UI of third-party plugins, there are still a few options to allow you to have easier access to the controls for your favorite plugins. Let's take a look. The project I've got open is the same one from last time. It's the work in progress.
That seems to work pretty good. It ducks the music significantly and leaves just enough of it there to have some kind of a sense of it. Now, something else that I'd like to do is go here where I'm actually playing something in Reaper, and I can see that on this audio track. And I'll just make some cuts. Any DAW. Okay, so let's take a look at that in Reaper. Let me save my project here in Resolve and open up Reaper. Not going to save that project, and let me get my mixer back over on the main window. I'll just add a track. Check, check, check. Let's get some audio here. Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again. Looks like we are asking how to create a speakerphone effect in any DAW. I'm recording my voice now just so we've got something to work with, so let's play with this and see what we got. And probably the easiest method to do that is just with an EQ. I guess I can turn that off. Well, an EQ and some distortion or saturation of some sort. So I'll add Re-EQ, just the stock Reaper EQ plugin. And let's get rid of some bands. And we'll turn this into a, where is it? A bandpass filter. You could do that, or a high pass, but let's play with this for a second and see what we get. Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question. Maybe not a bandpass. Let's go with just a regular band filter. And just find a frequency that gives you the sound that you're looking for. Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again. I guess I probably should also, let's do a high pass and a low pass. Or maybe just a high pass and increase the Q on it to give myself a little bit of a hump and trim out some of the low end. Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again. Okay, that's not bad there. And my last video, I showed how to embed controls in the track control panel, and I forgot to turn that off as a default for Re-EQ, so you can see that over here in my mixer. You may not have that, but that's something that I need to just disable anyway. So now that I've got the EQ set up some kind of way, I need to add some type of distortion. As for after processing, I guess it just depends on, I mean, I would try both ways and see how it sounds. I don't think that there's necessarily a right or wrong answer for that. I think for this I might use wave shaping distortion. And right now I've got that at 0%, and we'll start to add some in and see how it starts to sound.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again. Looks like we are asking how...
And now that I've got that distortion, I may want to adjust this EQ. And you could also try running the EQ before or after the distortion. And that guy's back again. Let's get them out of here.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again. Looks like we are asking how to create a speakerphone.
I think I would probably want to distort this even more and then maybe add a volume plugin afterwards. Like I can use this volume adjustment JS plugin, and I'm going to go ahead and turn that down a bit just because I know if I push this distortion, it's going to get loud. I maybe shouldn't turn it down that much. Let's see.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again. Looks like we are asking how to create a speakerphone effect.
So, and you said speakerphone, but I guess in my mind I'm thinking megaphone. Is this something like what you're looking for? I don't know that I necessarily like the way that the high pass is doing, so I think I'm going to drop that down and just use this to trim off some low end.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper.
And then maybe add another band and make it a low pass. And just run these independently and see if I can find something that works.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is
and perhaps add one more band and add a boost somewhere.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again. Looks like we are asking how to create a speakerphone effect in any DAW.
There we go. I had to add a lot more distortion, and that's, again, why I added this volume adjustment plugin, is because if you push that too hard, it's going to end up clipping the channel and sounding pretty nasty.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again. Looks like we are asking how to create a speakerphone effect in any DAW. I'm recording my voice now just so we've got something to work with, so let's play with this and see what we got.
Maybe set that on a loop for a second.
Over here again. Looks like we are asking how to create a speakerphone effect in any DAW. I'm recording my voice now just so we've got something to work with, so let's play with this and see what we got.
I think that works out pretty good there. So here is before. Over here. This is just the natural speech through
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper.
And with those plugins engaged.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper.
And hopefully that's kind of something like what you were looking for. Something else you may consider is automating this parameter, this band that I've got in the middle.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the...
So if I wanted, I could, let's see, click on that band, go to param, and you can see my last touch parameter is showing to be band 3. Oh, speakerphone VST. Now, that's something. Toucan Studios needs to bring out a speakerphone plugin. Trying to think, how can I do this easily? I do so little of this stuff. I guess I could do a track envelope for it. And maybe create an automation item here. Let's switch this to a sine wave. Don't know what I've done with it. Add a few more cycles to it.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper.
Doing that the wrong way.
Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk.
I guess the smarter me would actually move the, let's see, what am I messing with here? I'm messing with the amplitude on it instead of, or I'm messing with the gain instead of the frequency. I guess you could automate the frequency on that as well if you wanted. It's like if you get your EQ compression done on a song, but it sounds flat just sitting in the mix, now it needs color, slight speaker, just, and I get that. You know, for having something sit better in the mix, instead of doing something like this, you may consider just adding some saturation to give it some harmonics. And gosh, there's so many different options, but it's hard to give you anything that's like a prescription, so to speak, without hearing it in context, because it depends on what the song needs. It could be an issue of frequency masking. Maybe it's conflicting with some other frequencies. I find that saturation and compression helps a lot with vocals. And I don't know that I've got anything that I can show right now that's not copy protected. That would end up like demonetizing the. Let me see what I've got in my list here. Yeah, pretty much everything that I've got is currently under a license of sorts, so I can't show anything in context here. But I mean, you could do something like that, and that should get you the speakerphone effect. Like I said, if you wanted, you could try automating the frequency there. That's what I was looking for. If I move that, and then parameter modulation, LFO, there we go. I think that's what I was looking for before, but couldn't quite find what I was looking for. Let's try that.
Mike, let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find.
And that, maybe we should slow that down. Color, got you. Okay. When I think of color, I usually think of saturation. You may try some different channel strips or some different saturation plugins to see what they do, because saturation, of course, will add harmonics that will help accentuate certain frequencies.
Mike, let's talk about Reaper. Yo Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again.
So I guess like for, let me
Mike.
see if I can get rid of that modulation there, because that is annoying now. But there's some different saturation plugins is about all that I can think of right off the top of my head. If anybody else in chat has a better answer for that. Like this is one that I like from Klanghelm. If you want to slow down on beat in some points. Slowdowns, you can do that with... to my knowledge, you can't do a slowdown in Reaper independent of the master. You may be able to, and let me see if I don't think that I can... I don't think that the playback rate of an individual item can be automated. Again, I may be wrong on that, but I can create the idea of a slowdown just with pitch automation. So just for example, like if I go to add a take effect on this, well, not a take effect, I'm looking for, gosh, I feel like I can't, my words are just not there today. Take envelope, there we go. And pitch is not an option. Okay, right there. I can add a pitch envelope on this particular item. And like, for example, right here, I can add a couple of automation points and bring that down and back up, and let's see what that does.
Sexy Gamer is asking, let me find the question over here again. Looks like we are asking how to create a speakerphone effect in any DAW. I'm recording my voice now, just so we've got...
And that just did the pitch automation, but of course if I go and I add the master track to where I can see it, which I very rarely do, had to find it there. On my master track for my envelopes, I can actually adjust the play rate, which would give you the classic, I guess, tape stop type effect, but it will be a global parameter and not something that, I don't think that you can do it on a per item basis. So like here, I can do a similar thing.
Let me find the question over here again. Looks like we are asking how to create.
That actually sounds pretty cool. But yeah, DevilX, I'm sorry to not have a better answer, but I don't think that it's possible in Reaper. I may find out that I'm wrong later. Yeah, Yo Sexy Gamer, I'm not sure if you were on our Discord server. Let me grab a link real quick and I'll put it in the chat there. Just a sec. All right, so here is a link for the Discord server. Perhaps we can discuss this a bit further on Discord, where we can engage the hive mind and see if that works better. But yeah, saturation, compression, and EQ, I feel like are your best bets for getting things to sit better in the mix. I mean, you can maybe try adding, you may consider like ping pong delay. I've used that a lot, just to make something bounce back and forth between the left and right speaker while you've still got the primary in the center. And that definitely draws some attention to that particular vocal and helps it to stand out. And it may just be a simple matter of automation, volume automation, to help lower some things just a little bit so that vocal stands out a bit better. That is, it's weird. That's not a bad question, but it's not something that I feel like anybody, if anybody gives you a clear-cut answer for that question, I would avoid it. And I say that because it really depends on the voice. The EQ that works for my voice is not necessarily what's going to work best for the next person's voice, and you also have to consider the music that's around that vocal. If you're dealing with a vocalist that has a whole lot of bass in their voice and you're dealing with music that has a whole lot of bass, of course you'd probably need to shave some bass off of the voice and EQ it different from other elements, just so that there's differences. I mean, if you've got too much similarity in the EQ of all of the things that are in your mix, it'll lead to a muddy mix with no distinction because everything is being boosted or cut in the same area. It's the same way with guitars. If you've got like guitars panned hard left and hard right, even if it were the same guitar and the same amp used for both takes, I tend to EQ the left and right sides differently because it helps to make them stand out a bit better. You can EQ them different. Like if I boost one guitar at 2.5K, for example, I will likely cut the other one at the same frequency. I try to do opposites to where the parts stand out but blend in, if that makes sense. And as I am looking at the time, I have missed something I was supposed to do at 4:30, and it is now 5 o'clock. So I'm going to need to call this one quits for now. Thank you guys and girls for joining me today. Let me find the right screen here. Yeah, thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I know this was a bit unorthodox since I spent most of my time editing a video in Resolve instead of messing with Reaper, but I figured I would just turn on a camera and see what happened. So with that, you all have a great rest of your evening. I'm going to take the dog out and do some of the stuff I was supposed to do for work a little while ago. Have a good one.